From In the Beginning to the Musical Apocalypse, this is The Bible Says What. I'm your host, Mike Wiseman. Before we begin today's regularly scheduled program, I have a new patron to thank, Steve Ski. Thank you for all the extra love and support, Steve Ski. That being said, what does the Bible say about false prophets? Lots. Let's dive into one of the verses. Ezekiel 14:9. And if the prophet is enticed to utter a prophecy, I, the Lord, have enticed that prophet, and I will stretch out my hand against him and destroy him from among my people Israel. Why would the Christian deity purposely entice someone to do the wrong thing? What purpose does that serve? And how is that considered free will? Why would a loving being punish someone for doing exactly what he convinced them to do? To make matters worse, Yahweh is all-knowing. He knew what his actions would cause. He knew he was going to lash out irrationally when his plan worked. The only conclusion I can draw here is that the loving Christian deity wanted this prophet dead. Yahweh enticed the prophet to say the wrong things so he could find some twisted sense of justification for the senseless slaughtering of his own children. Why would anyone choose to worship such a monster? Let's start the show.
Is there anything in the Bible that you yourself have an issue with? Okay, so it took you reading the Bible to realize that those things were bad for you?
Yeah, it actually did. I
Couldn't
didn't
figure this out on your own?
No, Ted Bundy could be redeemed. God doesn't kill children.
What do you think the Passover was? Yahweh sets up a whole system in the Old Testament where you slaughter animals just so he's able to forgive you.
Today's special guest is returning guest, Christian video podcaster and businessman, Rick Walker. Welcome back to the show, Rick.
Awesome to be back, Michael. Good to see you.
Thanks for taking the time again. Thanks for coming back on. Remind the folks at home a little bit about what you do.
Great. So I run a series of businesses here in the Texas area, traditionally in the real estate and investment spaces. And so I've been in these businesses for about 26 years. So just slugging away like the rest of the world behind a desk all day, every day. And so that's my dream. That's my life. Got a great family here who's just a blessing to me. So I spend all the free time I can with them. Do a lot of volunteer work around. So I do not consider myself a podcaster. I just happen to have a podcast. So I'm not a very good podcaster. I'm not a very good speaker. I'm not a very good really anything. But hey, I'm here. I'm available.
Oh man, give yourself credit. You're awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. So last time we discussed a bunch of things, and we left off at sacrificing the innocent to forgive the guilty. I kind of wanted to pick up right where we left off there. We did a part two. We're not live in Vegas. Sorry, everybody. But we're live in Vegas. I'm live in Vegas, so I guess it's half the point right now. So on that topic, as far as slaughtering the innocent, so God chose to slaughter the innocent to forgive the guilty. Tell me what you think about this.
Yeah. So a couple of different things just to preface this. I think we may not have time to go through all the reasons why I think either it is justified or maybe didn't happen. But just a couple of different disclaimers here. Number one, I think in a lot of the cases, it's possible that they never really obeyed because we see the same people groups coming back around hundreds of years later that were supposed to be annihilated. So I think that's just one thing that it may be some sort of form of rhetoric, Michael. I don't know. I'm not an Old Testament or ancient scripture scholar. And but from what I've heard, that some of the different war stories that they would use these sort of very ominous sorts of language as a war rally, and so it's possible maybe God used that or they used it. Obviously, we don't want to take all the scripture literally because there's songs in there, there's different types of poetry in there that are not akin to the Western mind. Remember, I guess Christianity is an Eastern language primarily. We follow an Eastern God out of the Middle East. So I guess that's the first thing. And the second thing is just to reconstitute this idea of God sitting outside of time. He's not a God in time, like we are. So he's he's not trapped of only looking at the moment and looking at the immediate future through death. He's looking at the context of the entirety of time. And so if the children or innocents did die and you believed in eternity, and that's my assumption, is that I believe in the infinite, I believe in eternity, I believe in God manifest himself in Jesus Christ, that the children were taken out of a finite threat of child sacrifice and satanic sorts of living that were displeasing to God, and put into an infinite good. Now, I know we're going to get back into that later on, but those are sort of the two sort of preferences before we get started down this line of thinking.
Gotcha. So let's go with Jesus, though. Let's push aside the kids he killed and all that shenanigans for now. Jesus had to die because God was not willing to forgive people unless Jesus died, unless that innocent blood was spilled. And it wasn't just any innocent blood. It had to be, the perfect, I'm going to use the word magical blood that was going to wash everybody away, or wash everybody's sins away. So in that instance, God required the sacrifice of an innocent. Is this something that makes sense to you? And if so, how can we make it better? How can we make it sound better?
Sure. So I agree with you 100% that it is sort of a magical type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think even when we start talking about the very beginnings of the universe, how everything comes out of nothing, the scientists still need to be granted a magical moment in order to make all the logic and all the science work out in the end. And so I think magic is a view, is a perspective of all of us, that we can't mentally reason out love. We can't mentally reason out consciousness. We still don't even know what consciousness is. And so there's certain things that we have to rely on higher authorities, and we pick and choose our higher authorities. So yeah, I agree with you 100%, Michael, on that. We've got to give some weight to what we consider higher authorities, and sometimes the higher authorities have a little bit of magic, a little bit of the supernatural.
Well, so, what I would say as far as the universe and the I don't know, I would just say I don't know. I mean, yes, I can call things magic. I can call my cell phone magic. I mean, I don't know how that works, but there is somebody out there that can figure that out. And there are people out there that are trying to figure out the beginning of time and where everything came from and how it all happened and all that shenanigans. But I'm not going to insert the magic until I figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how the cell phone works, but I'm not going to call it magic until I figure it out. I'm just going to say, yeah, it's science. I mean, somebody knows how to do it. Somebody can figure it out, like somebody knows, or somebody will know, it's just,
but the ascent of everything out of nothing doesn't work mathematically, doesn't work logically either. So we have to give some grace to the scientists, right? So all the work that they're doing right now in biotechnology and physics stuff, we can't just discredit everything they do because we've got to grant them a moment of magic to start the universe. So I'm saying that it's an entirely reasonable thing to give some grace, to give a little bit of magical credit. Just we don't discredit everything with you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater with that. And so let me answer your question. Let me answer your question about this Jesus person. So the claim is this, that Jesus was born at a specific time, a specific city, under a certain specific Roman magistrate, into a specific bloodline that was prophesied by 12 Jewish prophets. I'm not a Jew. 12 Jewish prophets over 1,000-year period in the Jewish scriptures. It was also prophesied by Plato, by Socrates, by Homer, and many others, including people out of Egypt. And then, so the claim is that he lived a perfect life, he died a perfect death, and he was raised back to life. Now, everyone believes, any serious scholar, even atheist, agnostic scholars, believe that he was a real man. There's more evidence for Jesus than there was for any of the pharaohs, Alexander the Great, and many other people. Even atheist Bart Ehrman, an atheist New Testament scholar, gives 15 independent sources for the crucifixion of Jesus. And if he was crucified, he died, he also lived. And so
I'm on the fence about all that. I mean, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of scholars talking different things. Yes, Bart Ehrman definitely believes there was a physical person named Jesus. Not that all the magic stuff happened, but the person existed. There's people that believe he didn't exist, and there's a lot of it's back and forth. And right now, I'm on the fence. I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. I have not looked enough into if he's a real person. I've heard both sides, and I need to do more research before I make a final decision. So I'm on the fence, man. I mean, it's possible that he wasn't real.
I certainly think that Gary Habermas is a great resource for that. He's a guy that did a lot of the research on the ancient text to look at the manuscripts, and he cites the majority of those 15 sources come within 100 years of Christ's life. And the majority of those people were put to death by their enemies for their very beliefs. Now, there's no reason why they would write a lie and not recant if they were to save their lives. No one dies for a lie. No one
People
dies
die for
a
lies
lie.
all the time, Rick.
Well,
all
not
the
for their
time.
own lie that they know is a lie. They know it's a lie.
They don't know it's a lie.
No one knowingly dies for them.
No one knowing, exactly. No one knowingly dies for a lie, but they believe this wholeheartedly. The people who flew planes into the buildings in 9/11 believed wholeheartedly they were going to go get their 72 virgins or Virginians
Absolutely.
or whatever it is. But I don't think that makes it any more real. That doesn't convince me at all that they have the right belief or that it is a true belief. You know,
I agree 100%. But they thought that what they believed was the truth, and I think that's pretty logically clear. Whether they're crazy or not, they thought they saw a resurrected Christ. They thought they heard all these things, and they thought they were in the right. So and so and so you not only have these 12 people that I mentioned. You also have groups that are 1, 2, 3. At one point, Paul says that over 500 people at the same time saw the risen Christ. And obviously, there's no scientific evidence of mass delusion.
Well,
and so that
we do have some mass delusions for sure. We've got some. There's people that I think it was somebody floating in the clouds or something. There's definitely some out there. Research that. Yeah, look into that. There's definitely some mass delusions for sure.
Eyes on, eyewitness, seeing the very, very, very same thing. So the last two things that Christians would believe about Christ is that he raised back to life, and that somehow restores our relationship to God, undoing sin, guilt, and death. Now, the whole idea, the whole concept, and I'll finish with this, Michael, the whole concept of God becoming a man, him dying, and him rising again is put something like this, that a resurrection for one man suddenly opens up a whole new world of possibilities for all men. And that's the promise of Christianity. It's not executed correctly. It's not always executed perfectly, but that is the hope and the promise. That's the thing that we sort of aspire to. We fail all the time, but we aspire to.
So in the Old Testament, is there a spot? Abraham, Moses, no, Ezekiel, I don't know. There's somebody in there that raises a boy from the dead. I cannot remember his name for the life of me right now. Oh my goodness, was it Ezekiel? I don't know. Okay, so it's in there. It's in the Old Testament. He lays on him. Do you know what I mean? It was one of those prophets from the Old Testament. He laid on the boy, and he came back to life. So he did that previously. Why did he need to do it again? Why did he need to show it twice or 3 times? I mean, 4. I mean, you got Lazarus.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that story.
Yeah, that's gonna bug me. Okay.
I think it's gonna bug me too. Hey, I'm the Christian. I should know that story.
There's somebody out there yelling at their radio right now.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So
we'll pass up that. We'll pass up that. So anyway, so God needed to resurrect to show that he could do this, that to show off his powers. Is that what we're going with this?
Well, so there were all these prophecies before him for thousands of years, probably a total of maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years of prophecies. Not only the Jewish system,
but none of them mention Jesus by name. Not a one.
Well, there are lives that have the name of Jesus. So Joshua and Jesus are both basically the same name. And so the act of Joshua leaving the Israelites out of slavery into the promised land, that is a pre-messianic activity. I would not consider that a prophecy, but that is a pre-messianic activity. And I know we don't want to dive back in. We spent a lot of time on Pharaoh and stuff last time.
I know we did all that. Yeah.
But just as a name synergy. But you have these strange things, Michael, like in Plato. Plato's Republic, I believe it's book 2. There's a conversation between I think it starts with G, Gaok and Socrates, and they imagine the idea of the just man, means kind of the good man, and the bad man, and they said something like if you want to create like the worst possible man, you would make him really bad inside, but on the outside he would look good, right? And it's this idea where I think another former atheist, Lewis, talks about this idea that like the worst type of man is a religious bad man. Like the worst bad man is a religious bad man. He looks religious, and he's really bad inside, That's the best cover up because they can do the most damage. And so the second type of man that Socrates speaks about in the Republic is the just man. And the just man who is really, really good inside, if he was on the outside, if he looked good, if he looked perfect, he would be able to receive benefit from that. Like people would laud him and praise him. And so you wouldn't want to reward a just man. You wouldn't want to reward a good man. You'd want to strip him of all the acclimates. You want to strip him of all of his outer garments, and you'd want to see what that good man, that just man deep inside would do, how he would react. And he said that the idea of the perfect goodness is you take that just man, you strip him of all his clothes, you beat him, you flog him, you gouge his eyes out, and then you pierce him in the side, and you wait to see what kind of good man he is. And so there's some sort of like pre-messianic evidence. There's like 10 other descriptives in that.
Wait, how does that correlate with Jesus? The stabbing part? That's it?
No. The stripping of the clothes, the flogging, the idea of a just man. Remember, Pilate pronounces Jesus not guilty. I find no guilt in this man, but it's the religious people who crucify him, who demand for him to be crucified. And so Socrates, it's a just man. Everyone knows he's perfect.
Socrates or Plato is saying this? That they're talking about a perfect man?
Plato reciting a conversation that Socrates had.
Plato,
yes.
Okay. Plato's reciting a conversation Socrates had. And they're talking about a just man being whipped and stabbed. And that to you is Jesus.
It's like the perfect. Well, it's a perfect man with like 10 different descriptives. The perfect man that everyone says is guilty, right? Jesus was condemned to death on a cross by the religious people. Like, although they knew he was pronounced guiltless by the representative of Caesar. He's flogged. He's stripped of his clothes. Has his eyes gouged out because he can't see anything. He can't see God anymore. He's blinded. And like there's like 10 other descriptors in there, but then finally the very last thing he says is that he's stabbed, he's pierced, like with a spear. Pierce is always a spears, and that obviously that's how they prove the actual death of Christ. That's how Christ's enemies prove his death, when the soldiers stabbed him and the blood and the water flowed out.
Yeah, is he the only one that was stabbed, Jesus, ever through crucifixion while being crucified?
Well, if you compound the 10 things that Plato talked about and the idea that he was a perfect man, well, I think it'd be hard to name anyone else in history.
We can debate the perfect man thing. Plato might have just been thinking of a guy, an innocent man who's being sacrificed for something. I mean, there's 100% that happens constantly back then and still now. So that is a possibility as well. And they used to flog people, right? And they used to stab people, and they used to crucify people, and they used to gouge out their eyeballs. So all these things kind of work into the same.
His comment about 350, 400 years before Christ, I believe that predated crucifixion.
Oh, so they didn't crucify anybody in the Plato story, but they tormented somebody and they killed them essentially, right?
They killed him.
Yeah. They didn't crucify him in there. Okay, so I mean it's close. But if it was said Jesus, the Son of God, was going to come down, and he's perfect, and if he crucified, blah blah blah, then I could see something. But it's kind of like reading Harry Potter 1 and then writing Harry Potter 2. I have Harry Potter 1. Yeah, I can make the connections fit. I see these things, I can make it fit now. That's how I see it. And a lot of the prophecies that I see in the Old Testament are not talking about Jesus. It's either Israel or somebody else. And Jesus didn't come back and wasn't this warlord or take over things. And he's not going to do that yet. You got to wait till the end of the story. So it's just a lot of things that just don't add up for me.
So the specific other terms I was thinking about in Plato, again, this is Plato's Republic, book 2. Anyone can go look it up. Is that he would be the best of man, that he would continue into the hour of death, and he would still be just, but everyone would call him unjust, and that he would be scourged, he would be racked, so he'd be tied up somewhere, he would be bound somewhere, he'd have his eyes burn out, and then at last, after suffering all the types of evil, he would be impaled. Now, the impaling is not only just of the side. It's also of, he's impaled on both his hands, both his feet, and his sides. He's impaled 5 times. And so the impaling, the rack, the scourge, the stripping, the perfect man, but also declared perfect by the the representative of Caesar, but also deemed evil by the religious crowd. I mean, it's a compound of all these things. Statistically, I mean, there may have been one or two people in that interim term that maybe fit all this thing. But I think like the important thing about this is that we see that our enemies, like the religious devout, like the people that mandate you act certain ways and do certain things, that those are the very enemies of Christ. Like we have the same enemies, the guys that say that you've got to be perfect, you're never going to be loved, you're never going to be, you got to obey these 600 laws. Like those are the same people that crucified Christ.
Laws, yeah. Yeah, we'll get into the laws. We'll get there. So Jesus, though, this perfection, I want to discuss the perfection. Why do you think he's a perfect guy? I mean, we could talk about leadership too. You think he's a leader, a good leader, somebody to follow? Tell me why.
Yeah, so he says that he comes not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. He's out of his own lips, he claims himself to be a servant. I mean, he washes his disciples' feet instead of demanding that they wash his. He consorts with, and he brings the poor people to his table. I mean, he has lepers, and he's got prostitutes. He has all sorts of people hanging around him that the Jewish religious crowd, like they're like, you can't have anything to do with these people, but he brings them in. And it shows you that he's a man of the people. And I think yeah. So I go back to someone like a Van Gogh, where he tells his brother Theo in these letters that he, although he's been banished by the church, he sees the divine in the ordinary. Like the dirtier the peasant, the more he wants to paint that person, the more divinity he sees in that person. There's something more beautiful about a poor person, about a person that's been struggling, that people of the earth, than the people that are royal, dressed nice, and so forth. And it seems like that's the kind of man that Jesus was. And so I think that's the sort of person he maybe aspires for us to be, that we don't try to be around the people that can give us things. We want to try to be around people that we can help, and they have no opportunity whatsoever forever repaying us.
I don't see that verse, though. I don't see that verse. I do see
about what?
Well, helping people that way, and for them not to repay us just to help them. I don't remember that one. I'm sure there's something similar in there. But Jesus also said, Matthew 10:34, do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother. That doesn't sound like a good leader to me. That doesn't sound like somebody I want to follow.
Yeah. Well, what is he doing? What he's doing is he's setting up a new religion. He's saying that this is a break from Judaism. This is a break from anything you've ever seen. And it's going to take you being willing to stand up and fight in a metaphorical standpoint for what you believe. That even if you are living in the household of your own parents, who I remember the Jews were told to honor your father and mother, and you would be blessed, right? I think it's the 5th commandment, something like that.
And if you don't, they'll stone you to death.
What he's saying is, well, the Jews will stone you for anything. They're looking for any reason. And
God
so
gave them the reasons.
Well, they intuited the additional 600 or so laws. I mean, it's pretty bad. But
we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah. So Jesus says that even though someone in your household is that thinks you're a fool, that your job is to stick to what you believe is the truth, and the truth obviously would be that he is the Messiah. Now let me make one other comment about stoning, just to give some context about who Jesus was. There was a woman caught in the act of adultery, and of course the Jews, the religious crowd, the religious elite, they brought her to Jesus and said, this one was caught in the act of adultery, and obviously, like, where's the man? The man doesn't show up. The man gets off scot-free, and he says, well, it is said that you're supposed to stone him. That's what your law says. And he says, but I say to you, let him who has no sin be the first to cast the first stone. And they all dropped their stones and they walked away because they knew they weren't all sinless. And that's what perfection does when it's dropped into the unholiness of the religious crowd. They have to drop their stones and walk away because they can't answer intellectually, and they couldn't answer in the physical judgment of the stoning. And I think that gives a little bit of compassion about who Christ was and what kind of thing Christ did. And he tells the woman, "Go, sin no more; your sins are forgiven." And she leaves.
Matthew 5:32. Anyone who divorces his wife except for marital unfaithfulness causes her to become an adulteress. And anyone who marries the divorced woman commits adultery. Now, if we go to Leviticus and Deuteronomy, the punishment for adultery is death. Jesus knew this. Jesus was Jewish. So I'm seeing different stories here about the same guy. He saves the prostitute, but he wants to stone divorced, adulterous women. How does that add up? How does that work?
So at the incarnation of God in Christ, so literally God descends, somehow puts on a human body, and
Zips
it's
it
here,
up.
right?
Comes on down,
It's like
takes the
Spider-Man. It's your Spider-Man. Yeah. And so again, I don't know how it happens. I don't know how it happens.
Yeah.
But somehow when that happens, there's a bridge that's made that is fulfilled on his death and resurrection, the ability to be able to believe in that we are no longer guilty and deserving death for those sorts of activities. That if the punishments of the Old Testament are no longer applicable because you're no longer under the old law, you're under grace. It's a new covenant, right? The old law was a covenant that God made with his people, and then the rulers then just extrapolated it like crazy and made with their people, and it became a burden on there. And what Christ did, he came to fulfill it. He fulfilled the law perfectly himself so that we never had to, and then he applies grace to those who believe in him.
Build the law.
And so the punishments of the Old Testament are no longer applicable.
So when Jesus says they're adulterous, he means don't stone them.
In that verse.
Yeah.
So I think when he says they're adulterous, I think what he just means is like he's calling a spade a spade. Like definitionally, like if you do this, if you're married and you sleep with someone else.
No, divorced. If you marry a divorced woman,
Oh,
that woman, yeah, you're marrying an adulteress, and you're fitting of the crime or the punishment. And the punishment is,
well, you're not fitting of the punishment. That's an inference back to the Old Testament that he doesn't make.
Let me go back to that verse real quick here. Let me make sure he doesn't say anything about punishments here. Jesus, neighbors, saved. Oh my gosh, I should have just hung on to it. Give all the poor. Oh, here it is. Matthew 5:32. Anyone who marries the adulterous divorce commits adultery. Now, so he's accusing them of committing adultery. And back then, during the time before Jesus died, he hasn't died yet. So that blood hasn't done its thing. So at that time, adulteresses were following the old law and were stoning them, right? I mean, that just kind of goes together there.
Anyone that marries a divorced woman. So this would be a man that marries a divorced woman.
Man, woman, yeah.
So
man,
if a man, yeah, it doesn't say a woman married a divorced man. So a man that marries a divorced woman, what he's saying, that man should not marry her. Now he can still take care of her financially. Like you need to take care of widows and people that are destitute, obviously. And he's saying something like the act of marriage, the sexual nature of that is meant to be between one person and another person for life, no matter who dies first is essentially what he's doing. It's an eternal covenant is I suspect what he's getting at there, Michael.
Right. When he says, except for marital unfaithfulness. So he could beat the crap out of her. And Jesus says, stay. Except for marital unfaithfulness causes her to become an adulteress. So if he's beating the crap out of her and she leaves him, she's an adulteress because she's happy with somebody else. That's terrible.
If she leaves him, it doesn't say she has to get divorced and leave him. Like she can take the kids and go.
Well, that's technically you're divorced, you're left, you're separated, whatever you want to call it. Jesus sees it as an adulterous thing, no matter what the circumstances, except for unfaithfulness.
Not if she's left. Not if she just left.
Technically,
divorced, That's the divorce. Well, I mean, these are Eastern brains. There's Eastern brains. Yeah. Look, I'm not a very smart man, Michael. I don't understand these things.
You're smarter than me so far.
I'm just trying to put you. No.
All right. So we'll get into the laws. I definitely want to touch on that. But one more thing about Jesus here. Do you remember that time Jesus was hungry and threw the tables and cursed the fig tree and all that?
Yes.
Yeah. Jesus is hungry, and there is a tree that happened upon be out of season. It's Mark 11, 12 through 24, and then also Matthew 21, 18. Early in the morning, as Jesus was on his way back to the city, he was hungry. I love this story. Seeing a fig tree by the road, he went up to it, but found nothing on it except leaves. Okay, let's go to square one here. Jesus is hungry. He's magic. He can not be hungry. Then he goes up to a fig tree and doesn't realize it's out of season and gets upset about this. Let's just stay there. Let's stay in that spot for a minute. Jesus is hungry, hangry.
Which is fantastic, yeah.
And doesn't know a tree's in season. Explain that one to me.
Yeah.
Just that part.
It really shows the humanity of Jesus, that he gets angry. It's like,
that's not perfect.
Maybe getting angry at a tree
and lashing out irrationally on it is not a good thing.
Maybe the tree wasn't obedient. He is the tree's creator. He is the tree's creator.
Oh no.
So, but remember what happens? I think later on the next day, they walk by it with the disciples. The disciples are like, "Look, Master, the tree's withered."
Yeah, he killed it.
He says, "Of course it's withered. I talked to it. Yeah." But you see, he overthrows the tables in the temple. Remember the money changers? He gets angry about that. Yeah.
He acts on his anger.
I think it has to do that he gives us the freedom to have anger as long as it is righteously had. So it's righteous for the creator to be angry at its creation, this fig tree that it did not have figs when the creator wanted it to have.
Why is that?
It's righteous.
Why is that righteous?
Because he's the creator.
So he's the
creation should always be in obedience to the creator.
So you're telling me the tree was disobedient, so God lashed out. The tree was supposed to have fruit, or it wouldn't grow fruit, or help me make it make sense.
So just for everyone, we're way beyond the passages right now. We're just kind of speculating right now, right? We're just trying to
got to figure it out. Yeah,
we're gonna figure this thing out. Yeah. I suspect it has something to do with the idea that creation is meant to obey the creator, that there's some sort of formation there, some sort of dismal hierarchical structure being played there. And so he uses as an example to his disciples, I think the next day as they're walking by, just another bit of evidence. Like they've already seen him heal people, raise people from the dead. They've already seen all this stuff, but then he shows his divinity over a tree. Remember,
but where's
Christ
the tree not
hungry?
Where is the tree not listening to him? Which part is the tree not obeying the creator? Because I don't see that part.
Yeah. So a fig tree, its purpose is to produce figs. Just like
it's not in season, it's not going to produce figs, though. God knows this. God knows seasons. God set it up this way. God set that tree to not have fruit during out of season. And then God goes up to it and gets mad
about that tree.
For doing.
We don't know about
Satan
that tree.
Put that tree there.
he might have, yeah.
So what would have been better, Rick? Cursing it, killing it, or making it grow 10 times bigger and produce fruit all year round to feed all the hungry people? We can even go see that tree nowadays. It's the Jesus miracle fig tree. But no, God chose violence and death. I see a lot of God choosing violence and death.
It's interesting you should say that, because it's rumored that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden bloomed with different fruits 12 times a year. Every month there's a different type of fruit in there, and there's a tree like that supposedly in heaven, that there's a perpetual blooming tree. But I think at the very essence of this is that we've got a God that was really human, right? A God that really got angry like us, that really got
not
hungry
perfect
like us.
though.
He was really a man.
Man's not perfect.
Getting angry is fine. A man
Lashing
should
out
be
is
able to
not,
get
Rick.
a good man not able to get angry is useless. He's a patsy. He's a patsy. A good man should be able to get angry um, if things are not going the way that they're meant to be. He's supposed to be
Yes.
able to
But a
call in.
perfect man should not get angry at a fig tree that's out of season and curse it to death. A perfect man should not get angry to where he lashes out irrationally at a tree.
Well, it's not irrationally. It's not irrational if you're the creator.
It's irrational. He knew it wasn't in season. Where's the rationality? Explain. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know what the season of a fig tree is in the Middle East. I don't know.
Yeah. Me neither, man. Me neither. Well, that was fun.
He was always getting angry, right? Yeah, he was getting angry all the time, and that shows that there's hope. There's hope for me and you. Like when we get angry, like there's hope.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Therapy helps too. Anger management, all that shenanigans. I think Jesus needs some anger management courses for Jesus. That's an interesting story. That'd be a good cartoon. All right, so we're moving on now. Let's move on to those laws that I keep teasing here, that we keep touching on a little bit. So, what are the laws to you? And are there 615? Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, the Jewish laws. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
all those old laws.
Yeah.
What are they?
I'm not sure, Michael. I don't even pay attention to those because I'm not a Jew. I see the Ten Commandments. I see all this stuff that has to deal with the temple and the worship. Of course, the temple's been destroyed. Yeah. Christ predicts the temple's going to be destroyed, and it's destroyed by 70 AD. Mm-hmm. It's a figment of the past, and so I honestly think all of that is just completely irrelevant, and the Jews holding on to that. I mean, if you're a Jew today, where do you make your sacrifices? Like they're supposed to be making sacrifices. I don't see any blood running in the street. Come on, guys, get real about your religion.
Why aren't they stoning people anymore? Jesus says to, or Yahweh says to. I don't know. But so to you, they're just for the Jewish people.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I mean, so I'm a Christian because of Christ. And so obviously Christ comes out of the Jewish tradition, and one man living the perfect life, somehow, some way, I don't know how this happens, Michael. It's said that it gets imputed to us, that we get the credit of his living the perfect life. And so our faith in Jesus somehow gives us that credit of being a perfect person, although we're not perfect at all. Like I sin all the time. Like when I'm at the blackjack table, I get mad just like Jesus would get mad at the blackjack table.
Don't flip the tables, they'll kick you out, Rick.
for those of you not listening, like I'm gonna make Vegas jokes throughout because Michael's in Vegas and I'm jealous. So yeah, but man, it's like one of those things. Like I don't understand how they could do that. Like it's got to be horrific to have 600 laws to follow. It just seems impossible, and I think that's why no one ever was able to do it perfectly, and they had to kind of put the constrictions on the people. Like you couldn't make your own food on Sundays, you couldn't walk a certain length on Sundays. It was crazy stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, 1 John 5:3, for the love of for this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not burdensome. Deuteronomy 30:11, for the commandments that I command you today is not too hard for you. So God's talking about his laws here, and he's saying they're not too hard to follow. I agree with you. They are too hard to follow, and they are grotesque, brutal, barbaric. No, I know 100%. But it does say in there several times that the law is holy, righteous, perfect, and good. And this law came from God. It says, keep my commands.
The law in 1 John is referring to the law of Christ. So an entire movement is underway. Like the old is gone, the new way of thinking is here with the context of Christ coming. And Christ gives 2 commandments. He says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And he says, love your neighbor as yourself. Now he gives other sorts of directives about divorce and purity and raising your kids.
He's got lots to say about things.
Stuff
not
like
just those 2, but yeah.
Well, and a lot of them are just good common sense, right? You don't want kids rebelling against their parents when they're 10. You want them to be able to sit and learn and that sort of stuff. There's some common sense in there for life. Like do not lie, do not give a false witness. Be a good person generally. It's kind of general good stuff. Now but the two commandments are those two: love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And love your neighbor as yourself should not be debatable. I mean, that's a pretty good command. I think
Yeah.
we all really sense
Well,
that.
it didn't come from Jesus, that's for sure. That command, that idea has been around way before Jesus. So
yeah, it was the second commandment for the Jews too. Yeah.
I mean, I don't need God, the guy who asks people in their laws to get their slaves from their neighbors, to tell me to love my neighbor. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. Why don't you start loving your neighbor, God? Yeah. Matthew 5:18 through 19.
A slave today does not mean a slave yesterday. A slave 3,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago, whatever timeline you're using for the Exodus, the slaves were not slaves.
Did they want to be slaves?
They were 10-year contract employees who lived in the house, were taken care of like family members, and had a job that was guaranteed. They were protected from the safety, protected from floods, protected from natural disasters, protected from famines. It was a position of safety, and they were not
protected from abusive masters today. Were they? Were they protected from abusive masters?
They could leave at the end of every 10 years, or they could re-up. You can be abused by a boss.
Were they protected from abusive masters?
Anyone can be abused by anyone else.
Yes, but I can leave. But if I'm a slave, I'm abused and I'm stuck. The Bible, God's perfect laws, says if you can beat a slave and it doesn't die for 3 days, if it doesn't die after 3 days of being beat, then it's okay. God says you can beat your slave.
That's a Jewish thing. That's an Old Testament Jewish thing.
From God.
Well, it's from the Jewish lawmakers, is what it's.
The Jewish God came up with these ideas and gave it to the Jewish people. Jesus even referenced them for Matthew 5:18 through 19. Several places he referenced them, but this one specifically. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands, we're talking about the laws, the commands, all those Old Testament shenanigans, and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever, blah, 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 blah. So that's really weird. First off, they got least and more in heaven. So you got like a poor section. You've got like a meh section. Meh, it's okay to be here, but at least we're in heaven. You know, the running water is cold sometimes, but hey, we're in heaven. You know, that's because you didn't follow the laws.
Yeah. So the two commandments that Jesus gave would be the new laws. So
that's what he's talking about here.
Now he gave other pieces of guidance as well, which would be right and just to follow. And I think that's what he's referring to right there, Michael.
I don't think it's right and just to call a divorced woman an adulteress. That's just
a divorced woman who gets married again.
I don't think it's right to call them adulteresses. I mean, that's just ridiculous. But Jesus thinks it's a great idea. Lots of things Jesus thinks are a great idea. I don't.
This is 2,000 years ago. I mean, he wasn't in the woke culture like we are.
He should have been, because he's smart.
The Jews,
he knows everything.
His enemies, the Jews, brought the woman and said she was an adulteress.
Yeah.
I mean, they're throwing the word around all the time. And
so he
adulteress is only
jumps right in.
Is a technical term. Either you're adulterous or you're not an adulteress.
So Jesus is using a word back in the day that he knows in the future is probably going to be a word he doesn't want to use. But he uses it anyways, knowing that everybody in the future is going to be using this word now and thinking it's bad. So Jesus couldn't see that coming?
English word. I don't think he spoke English.
Whatever the word was, it was a Jewish word for adulteress or Greek.
It's got a clear definition. It's got a clear definition.
Well,
I mean,
it's harsh and unnecessary.
It's not.
That's just me.
You got to find a different translation. What translation of the Bible do you use?
NIV.
What translation do you use? I'm just curious.
Oh man, yeah, NIV.
Oh man, you're old school.
I grew up reading this thing, man. This was not this particular book. I stole this out of a hotel many years ago. But NIV is what I use.
Oh, the irony.
Right.
So I don't know. So I grew up on NIV too, and I don't know. Like, it was somewhere like maybe around 88, sometime around there. They started changing the words of it. Like, they had to modernize it for wokeness, and so they would do some things where they would not give God, they would not give certain other people certain definitive pronouns. They would say they instead of he, and it got to be really confusing. It was very confusing. And so I switched to an ESV version, which is sort of a more literal translation. Very, very, very similar. I mean, most of the words are the same there.
When I do Bible
it
Gateway,
kind of,
I'll do all three. I'll do King James, NIV, and then that ESV. I'll put them all next to each other and then do comparisons and shenanigans. I like doing that. That's my favorite. And then what I've noticed is this book right here, this Bible that I got out of the hotel, is different from every other NIV out there. I don't understand it. It's got like different words in it. Like, it's so weird.
Did you get it at a Marriott by any chance?
Yeah, maybe.
Like,
I don't know
like
why.
some sort of Mormon Bible or some sort of Jehovah's Witness Bible?
No. It's not that different. No,
because Jehovah's Witness will change one word here and there.
Bible Society. I don't know. Large print edition. Maybe that's why. Large print for us old people. I don't know. It doesn't look very large. Anyways, we're getting off topic here. Laws. So the laws in the Old Testament were just for the Jewish people. And God. So yeah, explain that. Like, did God quit using them? He switched over to Jesus. How does that work for you?
Yeah. So let me put it the way Paul would put it. Now yeah. Paul was one of these Pharisees, Sadducees types of people that put Jesus to death. In fact, he was a guy that was there at the stoning of the very first follower of Christ, Stephen. You know, he was one of the guys, and he actually had an order from the church, from the Jews that allowed him to imprison and even potentially execute Christians, because they were trying to quell this uprising that was just dissension in their perspective. And so he magically gets converted on the road to Damascus, takes 3 days off. He's blind. He gets his sight's restored, I think, when a prophet comes to him or a priest comes to him, someone like that. And then he goes on and all of a sudden it's like the inversion of what he was before. So he writes, I think, almost half of the non-gospel New Testament. I mean, it's a lot of literature he's got in there, right? Yeah. And so he comes from this sort of Greek background, this sort of, highly theological background from the Jews, but then he's trying to kind of fit in what his revelation was. He saw a bright light. He talked to the risen Christ, he claims, and then he goes to Jerusalem and he talks to some of the senior disciples there and kind of corroborate, make sure everything lines up before he goes back out and starts talking about this and writing about this. And so he writes that Christ was the first in a long line of people that will live forever. It's almost like it's a new evolution in human history. Like, this is the next evolution of mankind, the type of mankind that will never die, that they have eternity in their hearts, and some way, somehow, that if they believe that Christ rose from the dead, and they do that with a humble heart, that life will be given to them. Again, I don't know how it works. I don't know why it works, but there's the claim over and over and over through Scripture and through church history, not the distorted church history of the Catholic Church, but church history, that this is the way things work. And so that tends to be the promise, and the idea that the promise coming out of the very enemies of Christ who put Christ and his people to death is really tough to ignore, that the evidence comes out of the mouths of the enemies of Christ.
So the Jewish people are his enemies?
The Jewish people are the Jewish leaders are the ones that put Christ to death. You're
those
right.
Ones
they,
at that
they
time.
demanded that Caesar.
Yeah, not all the Jewish people as a whole, just that group during that time are his enemies, right?
Clarify that. I'm not quite sure I follow.
Well, like you're saying the Jewish people were his enemies, right?
The Jewish leaders.
The Jewish leaders. Okay, just the ones at that time, not all Jewish leaders of all time. Just the ones that were that time are his enemies, right? Or just all time? Because, I mean, we got Jewish leaders in the Old Testament he loved. So...
Yeah. So I think there were bad there were bad Jewish leaders, right? There were like people like Saul. They would kill everyone and just a horrible person. And there were good people like Samuel, right? So there were good and bad leaders throughout. So I think it was on a case by case basis, I would imagine.
Right. And did God know that these people were going to be bad Jewish leaders? Bad leaders of his religion, essentially. He knew that.
Yes. So obviously, God being omniscient, he knows everything, and also omnipresent is across all timelines simultaneously. He knows exactly how things are playing out, and we don't expect to have a perfect world because without a perfect world, we can't have things like justice.
So I'm gonna put it as dominoes. God set up a crap load of dominoes in this room, and there's a red one over here. This is the bad leader. There's another bad leader. So God knows there's going to be bad leaders, right? They're going to do bad things. We can go to nowadays. We got church leaders are doing horrible things to children and women and everybody. I mean, honestly, nobody's safe from bad people. God knows. So God puts that last domino down and pushes it. So God starts the domino effect that leads to bad leaders, to bad teachers, to bad representatives of him.
So the very creation of the universe, the creation, the idea of free will is what was the initial domino, just to kind of use your analogy, I think.
Well, free will is engulfed in each domino, but he knows what decision everybody's going to make before they make it. Right?
Correct.
So he set up all the dominoes, knowing exactly what would happen.
Correct.
So where's the free will? If this is all a story that God has already written from beginning of time, where's the free will?
The free will is that God will not intervene on the day-to-day action. He lets us make our own mistakes. Because without free will, not only is evil not possible, but also love isn't possible.
Did he let Paul make his own mistakes, or did he intervene?
Paul?
Saul?
That we said? Oh, Saul?
Did he let Saul Paul make his own mistakes, or did he intervene?
He did. Well, the time that Saul was kind of like, you talking about Saul the Old Testament or Saul the New Testament?
Well, Saul to Paul. He showed up. So yeah, not King Saul.
Oh, Saul to Paul.
Yeah,
Saul to Paul.
Okay. Saul to Paul. So God showed up. He intervened to make this happen.
Yes.
Right. So God does intervene.
He does intervene, but it was still Paul's free will in order to accept that intervening. Like
God knew he was going to, right? That's why he showed up and blinded him and did all the certain things. He knew exactly what would convince Paul or Saul to be Paul. He knew it. So he wouldn't show up on a...
So you're talking about like a miracle. Would a miracle force someone to automatically accept God without their... Yeah.
Right. That's going against free will. It's performing a miracle. Yeah.
Okay. So we have to, if that's the case, and let's kind of follow that down a little bit.
Yeah.
You would have someone like a group of 2 million unarmed Israelites fleeing out of Egypt who somehow, some way conquered the most powerful army in the world with chariots without a single loss of a soul. That is a miracle. Now, those people immediately go into the desert and they start building golden calves to worship false idols.
Yeah, then he kills them because of it.
I find
that's another free will.
There's no evidence that I find that a miracle or proof, like the actual revelation of God, converts anyone. It's still a matter of free will. And I think we've got this throughout Scripture where people are hit with miracles. They're hit with absolute, like, face-to-face proof that God is and who he says he is, and then they just disregard it.
Gideon. That's a story where God intervened, convinced somebody. Gideon. Do you remember that? The fleece.
Refresh my memory.
The fleece in the water. He said he's talking to God. Man, I was in high school and I did a little puppet show about this whole thing. It was crazy. It was awesome. It was terrible, but I loved it. He did the fleece wet and the ground dry and the ground dry and the fleece wet, just to show Gideon that he was right, that he was going to help him out. So, I'm paraphrasing a lot here, but that's basically what it was about.
Yeah.
So God was tempted, essentially, asked to perform a miracle. He intervened. He came down, he did these things. That's against free will, that the water would have done its own thing. Gideon would have done his own thing. God intervened to change the course of things. He does it constantly throughout the Bible. And we went to the golden calf. Hold on. The golden calf story is amazing. I love that one.
And God, it is. And quick comment, God did not force Gideon to obey the tests that he put out. Gideon still had to obey those tests.
He showed him things to prove himself. God had to prove himself to Gideon, and he did it. He showed up. He did a miracle. He intervened. Where we go? The golden calf one. The golden calf. There's I can't remember what verse it is. I'm going to look it up while we're talking here. But during the golden calf thing, he came down and he asked them to strap swords to their sides and run through each other. This was, here it is. Yeah, Exodus 32:27 and then 35:27. Then said to them, the next day Moses committed a great sin, but now I will go up to the Lord perhaps. Oh my gosh, this is a long one. Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. Damn it, that's not the one. Go back and forth. There it is. Oh man, why is it not showing up on my thing here? Oh crap. I love doing these live on the air. It is great. Do you have it? Can you find it? Because I am like struggling.
I think
right
so.
now.
You're talking about. He says, "Put the swords on your side, each of you, and go to and from the gate to gate throughout the camp. Kill, and each of you kill his brother and his companion and his neighbor."
Yes.
Right. And,
yes. God intervened in their free will. They would have lived their lives worshiping this calf, but God says, "No, I'm so mad because you're worshiping this fake thing. I want you to strap swords to your sides and kill each other." Do you think that's free will?
Yeah. If they obeyed, man, they weren't obeying 5 minutes beforehand. They were not obeying 5 minutes beforehand. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Oh man, why doesn't God come down?
I mean, I can't. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why God doesn't come down. I mean, these people are. I mean, they've been following a cloud during the day, who is the manifestation of God, right? And then at night they had a pillar of fire. And then and just before this, he goes and over the mountain that Moses ascends, he covers it with fire and a cloud. And then Moses ascends there to commune with God. And so he's like saying, like, this is the revelation of, like, this is who I am. And these people saw it with their own eyes. I mean, they were following a cloud and a flame of fire through the desert, wandering through the desert.
You can't touch the mountain. You can't touch the mountain of God while he's on it, or you will die.
Yes. Yeah. So don't touch it. Don't touch it.
Not even the animals. The goat, the little goat, and it's done, you know. I get weird.
I don't know. You see, but yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I can't explain why all the laws and all the rules and all the toughness of the Old Testament is the way that we read it. Only to point out that it points out that we're incapable of obeying all the rules. That we're sinful people. Like if you give me 2 commandments, I can say, oh yeah, no problem. But at one point, I'm going to disobey that commandment. I mean, that's the sort of the Garden of Eden, right? I'm going to give you 1 commandment. Just don't eat from this tree. I'm going to give you 1,000,000 other trees. Just don't eat of this tree.
I'm going to put that one tree.
My golly, that's right. That's
in the middle of the garden.
I want all of a sudden. Yeah.
If you don't want me to eat the tree, don't put it in the middle of the garden. Take it out of the garden. Put it on the freaking moon, man. Keep it away from them.
Yes.
That's ridiculous. Okay, so last thing, we're almost out of time here. Thank you so much. This has been a blast again, as usual. Rick's always fun. I want to get into the personal relationship before we close this out. Do you have a personal relationship with Jesus, God, either one, both, Holy Spirit? How does that work for you?
Yeah. You have a minute or two for me to explain this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So it's not that I believe in God. It's not that I believe in Jesus. I know Jesus. So I have a relationship with him. He speaks to me in a way that's more real than being audible. Whoa. He guides the very major decisions of my life. Let me give you a couple of examples of this. Yeah. Two months ago, one of my business partners invited me to lunch. We meet a couple times every month. One of my very good friends, very, very close. And God told me that he was meeting with me because he wanted to. We've got a bunch of different businesses together. He was meeting with me because he wanted to close a specific business relationship that we've had for 5 or 6 years. Now, I met with the guy 100 times over 5, 6 years, and so he's a Hindu. And so God, that morning before I went to go meet with him, and I had zero communication with the guy other than the scheduled lunch over email. God told me, like, he's meeting with you to end this very specific business relationship, and you need to make sure he knows that you're not angry with him because he's nervous about it. So I write the guy a letter of the date with the date and put it in my pocket, put it in my suit jacket pocket. I go to lunch. He says, Rick, I feel bad about this, but this one business, we just need to, I just want to kind of close down the relationship there. And I'm getting some pushback because, I'm a Hindu, I'm an Indian guy, and I'm doing business with you when I can do business with other Indians. And so without a blip, within 1 second, I pulled the envelope out of my pocket, handed it to him, and I said, I'm going to run to the restroom, wash my hands. I want you to read that. It's a good thing. Read that. And when I came back, Michael, it said he read the letter. He said that I know that today you were going to you're intent on wanting to end this specific relationship with me. That Jesus told me that you would do that, and that it's not a problem. We're good. I'm here to help with any sort of transition. That I'm here to serve you. No problem. And when I came back, Michael, he was just shocked. He was shocked. I've never done anything like that. I've never put in my pocket like that before. Never, ever. It's the revelation. Case number 2. And this is one thing that proves the absolute relationship and existence of God to me without a doubt. Okay. So
all right. I'm ready.
About 8 or 9 years ago, there's all this stuff about fasting in the Bible, right? I never fasted. I thought, well, you know what? Let me try it. Like, I was kind of on a new health kick. Like, let me do. So I did a 7-day fast. Brutal the first 3 days, and after that, just a water and juice fast. And after that, I started getting some sort of it's like a flow state or mental clarity. And so I couldn't sit at a desk, so I would go to the park and I would read. And I'd walk around the pond and I'd read again. And I was sitting by the pond, and this is probably the third day of that, so maybe call it day 6. And I was reading my Bible and reading other books, and I heard this voice. It wasn't audible again. It was kind of like a feeling. It may be my consciousness. I'm not sure what it says. Yeah. It said, Rick, go get the very best executive health exam you can get, like a full screening, everything, like president quality thing. And so I emailed my assistant. I said, find the very, very best one for me I can find. So she found one. I go up the next week, and they're filling around, and they said, Rick, you've got a lump right here. We want you to go get that checked out immediately. So I went to the ER, had it scanned, went to another place that had it scanned, and I can't remember if it's CAT scan or PET scan, but it's like a 3D image where they give you the DVD.
Yeah.
And so I had that. So they gave me the DVD, and I take it to a cardiologist that all he does is works on the interior and exterior carotid arteries. And he says, Rick, I see one of these a year. What happened is you have these interior and exterior carotid arteries coming through your neck, and one goes to your brain, one goes to kind of your face, I think, blood flow. And he said that there was a growth there, that the walls of the tumor were actually the walls of the arteries. So the growth were the walls of the artery. And he said that the way they were going to have to do this, and he drew out a sketch on, that butcher paper where they put on the table. He drew it with a pen.
Yeah.
And I actually have it up in my closet at the house. And he showed me how they're going to do it. That we're going to have to do a bypass here, and rebuild replumb your neck, because it's this way. And that, you can expect, you might be in the ICU for a week or two, just depending on complications. And you might have some other complications with it, but it's going to be pretty major surgery. And so I go home, and I tell my wife, and my mom's a nurse. She's been in medical hospital management for a long time. And so she comes up, she's scared to death, and they're all scared. And I kind of do my will, stuff like that. So I go in to have this surgery about 2 weeks later. And the doctor puts me under. Now, I'm not a guy that blasts stuff on Facebook. I need prayer for whatever it might be. I told 3 people. Three people about this. I told one of my pastors here. I told a friend of mine in Costa Rica at that time, and a friend of mine in Dallas. Now only 2 of them knew each other. That morning, all 3 of them just happened to be staying at the same hotel in Panama on the same morning, and they met in the lobby to pray for me. They were there for different reasons. They just happened to be the same hotel, not the same city, same hotel. So they're getting together. I find this out later, and I thought, well, that's interesting. So I go into surgery, and I wake up. Now they're putting like the net pick. I got like all the heavy duty stuff. So I wake up, and I'm like, man, this isn't good. I'm in ICU, and the doctor comes out, and he said, Rick, when I opened you up, he said that growth that was about an inch, it was over 2 inches. It doubled in size over 2 weeks. Now, I hadn't been to the doctor in 7 or 8 years before that. Just right timing. It grew. But he said, Rick, this is like the thing I can't figure out. I can't figure this out, that somehow, not only that double in size, but somehow simultaneously it detached, and I didn't bleed out through my arteries, and both arteries simultaneously healed themselves at the same time. And so, Rick, I reached into your neck and I pulled this out. This is the man that saw the 3D video. I've got the DVD too. It's all 3D. It's all connected. It's all connected. He reaches out with his fingers, Michael, and I'll leave you to this. He pulls it out and puts it in a dish and sews me back up.
Wow.
Now, I can't explain something like that happening inside my own body where no one else can tamper with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. All I know is I've got a 3D video, full color video, and drawings from the top cardiologist at Methodist Hospital here in Houston, and that happening. And like, man, I have to believe. I have to believe.
Thank you for that. That's a great story.
Yeah, you want something personal. I've never shared that on video, Michael. So that's something that's deeply, deeply personal, and it's unexplainable to me. It's unexplainable to me. I know there may be something else out there to explain for it, but unless someone snuck into my body and did a procedure, that has to be what happened.
Well, Rick, I would go with, I don't know. You didn't see Jesus show up and do those certain things. It just happened. And you're attributing it to Jesus. I can attribute things to Spider-Man as well. I have a story that I was waiting for my wife to get the right schedule so we can get the kids. I can go to work and all this, everything can fit together. And Spider-Man told me, don't worry about it. He's got it. Well, guess what? A week later, everything fell into place perfectly, like even better than I had imagined. More perfect than ever. Praise Spider-Man. But I don't think it was Spider-Man that did it. I think my own thoughts came up with these ideas. My own wishful thinking came up with the Spider-Man part. Somebody out there trying to help me out in this situation. And it's just me. It's just me and my wife and the kids. I mean, there's no invisible man making sure the schedule gets done. No one's sending me peace to my subconscious, these are my own thoughts. These are my own situations and my own things. But what I want to know is,
it would have been even more magnificent. It would have been even more magnificent if my own thoughts healed the interior of my body.
It'd be more magnificent if Jesus showed up and just went boop, and it went away. That'd be more, yes. Or showed up at all. So how do you know, who or how did that lump get there to begin with? Did God put it there? Did Satan put it there? Did God allow it to be put there so he could teach you this lesson? Show off his powers type thing, like he did with the killing the kids in Exodus? What is that? How's that work?
Yeah. So I think that the idea that it being there, remember it grew twice. I hadn't been the doctor in 7 years. I've never had my neck examined like that and 35 years old. And so the probability that something like that would double in size at the right 2 weeks within a 35-year time period. Let's start stacking probabilities here. This is the
I work in the medical field. I see crazy things all the time. I don't attribute it to God.
Yeah. But the timing, we're stacking probabilities. The timing, 2 weeks period, you have 26 of those every year times 35 years.
Yeah.
You're at a pretty statistically important work. Then you got the only three people, not three of the people, the only three people didn't know each other, stay at the same hotel. And I mean, how many hotels in the world are there? And odds that they're traveling. And then you've got the probability that I didn't bleed out to death. I should have bleeded out to death if the thing just got removed, but I didn't bleed out to death. And then probably if they both were healed simultaneously. It's crazy. It's
but
crazy.
Who put it
there,
Rick?
Stacking probabilities. Oh, it was my body. My body was made to make that.
So God allowed that.
God created the universe. When God created the universe, He made my body that it would produce one of those. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So he could show off his powers later on and prove to you that he's real.
Yeah. So, I think about this a lot, that we've got to have some sort of natural disappointment, natural like chaos, like the chaotic thing that could destroy us. Like it's imperative. And I think I think it was Nietzsche. And I think I started our first conversation with Nietzsche, right? Yeah. So spoke Zarathustra. He says something like this, that you must have chaos inside yourself in order to give birth to a dancing star. You must have chaos inside yourself in order to give birth to a dancing star. That without chaos, without a little bit of danger, that you never not only have bright points of brightness that come out in the middle of the night like a star would be, but the star somehow is dancing. Like it's an act of joy that somehow through the chaos and through the struggles, joy comes in the ascendant. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in what Nietzsche says in that the chaos can lead to better things. And I think kind of gets back. And I encourage people to go back and watch our first conversation as well. I think that was a lot of fun as well. Just the whole idea about what a story could possibly do. And I think that's
maximal
that's
story,
really, I guess, how absolutely, that's kind of how I would then answer that. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I kind of want one more thing. Chaos in heaven. Is there chaos in heaven? Because heaven is supposed to be this perfect place. If you've got a kid that God kills when it's a kid and it goes to heaven, it doesn't get to experience that growth. That chaos is the helpful thingamajigger. They go right to heaven where there is none of that. So are they experiencing less of life? Are they getting a downgrade? I mean, how's that work for you?
Okay, so I'll give you two answers. First answer from a Catholic hat, like if I believe in purgatory, which I don't, that's the purification that removes all the chaos from you. Then you're ready to go to heaven. I don't see that anywhere in the Bible. It's a great idea. I just don't see it anywhere in the Bible. The second thing is kind of my prototypical Christian perspective is that somehow the presence of God in heaven, right? That's the definition of heaven. It is God there. Like there's no need for faith anymore because you see him, like you're in relationship with him. That somehow you being able to clearly see God fixes all the chaos in your life, fixes all the mental stuff that you've been going through, fixes everything. And everything's just made, like everything bad that's happened is made untrue. I think is the way I put it in the first.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, there's more on that. I want to talk more on that. We got to do a part 3. I got to go. But Rick, thank you so much. I appreciate it, man. Plug your stuff. Where can we find you?
This is fun, Michael. Hey, man, I'm Rick Walker Text. I'm all over Twitter, I guess Facebook or the book face or whatever it's called. and you know, whatever this thing is called. And we're probably going to be deplatform you and I at some point. So we're all over hashtag Rick Walker Text, I guess. But yeah, I'm around, man, and happy to answer any questions. And I'll try to get engaged on the comments as well. Again, if anyone has any questions or not. But I love you because you have this honest pursuit of the truth, and the condition of your Bible. You've actually been using your Bible. That should give people like proof that you're really trying. You're really digging for the truth, and kind of like Paul, like he's willing to go into enemy territory to be able to pursue the truth. I mean, I really appreciate that, Michael. And so, I had fun as always, and we'll do part 3.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rick. Take care. Stay safe out there. We'll stay in touch.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
That's all the show there is for you today. Thanks for listening. As always, you can find me at the Bible Says What YouTube and Facebook pages. You can also find clips of the show on TikTok under BSW the Podcast. If you like what you heard and want to help keep the recording light on, simply go to patreon.com/BSW the Podcast and sign up to be a supporter of the show. Your episodic tithes of $1 or more will get you early access to each episode by at least 3 days, stickers, shirts, and shoutouts. That's patreon.com/BSW the Podcast. For the latest events, BSW swag, including signed copies of The Bible Says What the book, head on over to the show's ever-evolving webpage at thebiblesayswhat.com. And no matter which platform you use to listen to your podcasts, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on the next episode. Until then, would you kindly pick up your Bibles and read them? Next time on The Bible Says What, I'm going to put myself in that situation. I created a world, and nobody's listening to me, but I'm all powerful. I have the option of showing up. I have the option of separating evil from my children. I can take it away and my children won't be evil because there is no evil in the world. That would be a better thing to do. But God chose the other one. He chose drown the kids with the evil, and then I'll start over again and make it better. But that didn't really work. Sin still survived. Bad people still survived. I really don't see it's kind of pointless, the whole thing, honestly. So that's what I would do as God. Those are the values that I would hold as a deity. I would try to do less harm. I think those are good things. Do you think it is good to do less harm and to try and save people or separate the evil from them? Do you think that would have been a good idea?
Oh, I think,
Do you like my idea versus Yahweh's idea?
in my human mind, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes, I do.
So in your human mind, it is more moral to do what I did, and it is immoral to do what God did in your human mind.
No, not necessarily.
Okay, so it's not immoral to drown children, puppies, and kittens.
I really don't understand. I mean, I would, I'm sure this is what you seek to do on this show, but I love you, bro. And I don't really, I don't want to get involved in a circular debate here.
No circular. It's a question. Do you see that as a moral thing, or would you do that?
Of course.
Is it immoral? Because it's immoral to drown puppies and kittens and babies, right? We would agree it's immoral to do that.
In every case that I have ever experienced as a human, absolutely it is.
Every case.
Absolutely it is. In my experience.
So why would God do something we see as immoral?